So good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to the Leading a Lean Organization session. I have the pleasure of introducing the presenter for this session, Sammy Obara. I'm going to read his bio, and then he'll be speaking to you shortly. Sammy learned and implemented the Toyota production system at Toyota facilities in Japan, Brazil, Venezuela, and in the United States. He has taught Lean to a multitude of consulting firms, educational organizations such as Harvard and Stanford, and even in humanitarian missions through Asia and Africa. With close to 30 years of Lean experience, he's helped more than 350 companies. These include TPS projects in environments ranging from schools to hospitals to military and many others in a variety of countries, including China, Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, Brazil, Japan, Austria, the UK, and the United States. Mastered in technology management, he also is a faculty member with the Lean Institute and an instructor of global strategy management for the California Community College System. He's a guest lecturer on Lean for postgraduate classes at Stanford University and San Diego State University, and has been a speaker at conferences sponsored by the American Production and Inventory Control Society, the Association for Productivity and Quality, and the American Society for Quality. He's fluent in Portuguese, Spanish, and English, and has a basic knowledge of Japanese. He currently aids companies implementing Lean through Honsha..org. Sammy Obara.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Good? Did you read the paper today? There's a list here, USA Today shows a list of the best and worst states for healthcare. And I was looking for Washington. It says here, it's in the list of the worst states. But it's DC, Washington, DC, don't worry. But the best ones are in California, Arizona, and Illinois. So it's interesting. How many of you watched or attended presentation from Virginia Mason? Almost all of you? Impressive, huh? That's great. Well, it's a big pleasure for me to be here today. We've been working with a few agencies here in Washington for the past 2.5 years. And I had myself the privilege to come here a few times. But most of the other times were people from Honsha.org. We are an alumni association of former Toyota people. And I have very good and very bad news this year. Maybe I'll start with a very bad. One of them, 3 bad things about this year. I lost a brother-in-law to cancer not too many months ago, and he was a missionary in the Amazon, a doctor. My sister married to him. She's a dentist, so they went to the Amazon for the 10th year. They are living there, and yes, he died of cancer. Now, last week, I lost a very dear friend to cancer again. So bad news all around. This good friend, she had 7 kids, and 4 of them stayed at our house, stayed over when she started chemo. And just last week, she passed away. The third bad thing on this bad news portion, I started working with one of the largest cancer centers in the U.S., if not in the world, in Manhattan, New York, New York. And I found out one very, very disturbing information there. It was a clinical trial department. That's where they test new drugs for cancer patients. Both of these people, they died of cancer because they didn't find the right drugs. But what makes this information very sad to me is that this clinical trial division in New York City had plenty of drugs to test, and they couldn't process candidates for those tests fast enough. So many of them died just waiting in the waiting room. Can you believe that? You have drugs waiting to be tested, people waiting to be tested, eager to be the experiment of those new drugs, and drugs don't get tested, and people die. How can we do this misalignment and fail so much? So I was glad when I saw Virginia Mason doing some of the things. I brought up one example, one article from Virginia Mason, but we've been working with several healthcare companies. We are actually bringing some people to build cars in Japan. Actually, next one will be in May 2013. And we bring some people from other countries to visit Toyota facilities, even in Long Beach. I live in San Diego, California. And we brought, just 6 or 7 months ago, 13 executives from Siberia, a company that makes the M&Ms. They wanted to visit Toyota. They wanted to learn how Toyota makes cars. And once they left and they went back to Siberia and Moscow, they said, well, we never learned so much how to make chocolate better just by watching how Toyota does it. So when we talk about Virginia Mason, and this is an article that was in a paper some time ago, what can really hospitals and some other institutions, and maybe L&I and your agencies, can learn from a company that manufactures cars? If we understand the beginning and the origin of everything, this article here shows Edward Deming being a statistician, an American statistician, finding out that 40% of everything that we do is wasteful. They don't need to be done. Still, they are done by many companies, many institutions. It shows here, too, that Virginia Mason was sending people every year to Japan, starting with the senior management and then doctors. And they came back and they eliminated some of the wastes, reducing patient weight, reducing the oncology time, and some others, slashing 45% here in some other processes. So if we start, and I believe that you want to learn what is the difference between leading and leading a lean organization. If we understand the principle where everything started, it started in a country as big as this here. Edward Deming was born in 1900s. In 1950, he was trying to convince us here in the US that everything we do has a lot of waste in it, 40%. We said, Deming, we are so prosperous, we are doing so well. Why don't you just take a walk? We don't need you, actually. And he took a walk. He went to a place very, very small. Maybe it's a country that's about twice the size, maybe 3 times the size of the state of Washington. It's exactly the size of the state of Montana. But if you discount all the volcanoes that they had, and the lakes and mountains, and one of the densest populations in the world, the productive land in that country was the size of the state of Connecticut. Now imagine that small state with this geography, and of course I'm talking about Japan. Deming went to Japan and said the same thing, but take a look. It's a lot of pieces of islands. That's Japan. It's not bordering any other country. Doesn't have other countries that speak the same language. That's the entire country, that entire continent, let's call it. And when Deming said, I tried to sell this in America, they didn't buy it. 40% of everything we do is wasteful. The Japanese said, what? Please teach us. Where can we eliminate waste? Because if we can do that, then we can thrive. And in that little country, the size of the state of Connecticut, they didn't have the big 3, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. They had the big 11. car companies competing for that piece of land. Not only that, they had big electronics industry. And I bet you know many of them. They had great camera makers, and still do. They had great service companies there that became big here in the US too, and Europe. They had food and beverage companies that made into the US and to the Western world. They had sports gears, heavy machinery. All that competing for this little piece of land. And if I asked you how many of you know at least half of the brands here, probably many of you. But this here is just a tiny fraction of the companies that left Japan to come and conquer the world. There's many, many more. And they are just in a piece of land like that. Of course, they said, teach us what we can do to improve. Because, you know, the place that we have, the space, the room that we have is the size of this room, and we need to build not only one department, one entire factory. Can we do that? Well, only if you start eliminating waste relentlessly. And back to when we said very, very big population, they have the 10th largest population in the world. But in terms of area, they are the 62nd largest country. That means very small. And if you look into that, let me just ask this question. How many of you own or consume at least 3 of these products? Maybe it's your car, maybe it's a phone, maybe it's your Nintendo, maybe it's at least 3. Let me see. Well, I think I see all hands. Maybe even 10, yes. But think about this now. This comes from a little island, very small. Let's go to countries that are much larger. Let's go to Zimbabwe. How many of you own things from Zimbabwe here? No? At least one? No? How about from Yemen? No products? So if we start thinking, well, for all these companies to survive and thrive, and this is just a tiny fraction of them, and come to the US and conquer the world, they really needed to be competitive. So Lean was born out of needs. They really needed to do that. Otherwise, you cannot grow to that size. And that's why everything started with, let's eliminate waste. Wherever we see it, we have to eliminate. But the problem is, how can we see waste? So they had this down to a science. And one bright guy in Toyota said, what if I identify all single waste that there is? Teach people how to find the root cause for those wastes. And create a technique so whenever they eliminate one waste, they will standardize so that type of waste will never come back. And that's how they started. The only thing they were trying to do is to reduce the lead time line from the time they received the order until the time they received the money for that order. And when we talk about being able to see waste, how many of you can see at least 5 faces here? Raise your hand. All right, how about 10 faces? Take a look at that. One hand, 2. If I give you more time, maybe you can find more. Can you see this one, for example? Yes? How about this one? Maybe this one. How about this? Did you see this one in the back? Probably this one here, right? How about this? Yes or no? All right. How about this one here? This one. This one. Just kidding. There's no face there. You guys are... That's not how the game is played, guys. Pay attention. But if I ask you, oh, look at that. I'm now looking for wolves. Can you see at least 4? I can give you more time, if you don't mind skipping lunch. Well, you probably saw this one here, no? How about this one? There's one right here. Ah, how about this one? Most people miss this one here. You know, when we talk about waste, it's exactly the same. Sometimes the more we look at, sometimes the more we look for it, the easier it is for us to find. So one interesting slide, I always like this here because it says here, before my Kaizen, Kaizen is roughly translated into continuous improvement. Before my Kaizen, I had to type 6 digits. After my Kaizen, I found a way to type only 4 digits, still get the same results. The results of my Kaizen, not only am I wasting less motion in 2 keystrokes, I don't type anymore, but I'm also eliminating the waste of correction in 2 different opportunities that I could make a mistake. Wow. Now let me ask you, do you agree that this lady is really eliminating those 2 different types of wastes? Now Toyota is posting posters like this in all public areas, and I mean meeting rooms, training rooms, but also elevators, cafeterias, parking lots, all the public places, urging people to pay attention. This is what we are all about. We cannot survive if people do not eliminate waste everywhere they find them. And that's the reason why they put so much emphasis in, well, how can you identify waste? We need to be able to do that. We need to be able to put standardization techniques in place so those will never come back. So improvement can really be continuous and not repetitive. Now, this is a $300 billion company. What do you think they are trying to do here? Because for a $300 billion company to be paying attention to something so mediocre like 2 keystrokes, doesn't that sound insane to you? Now you can raise your hands. Anybody, does that sound insane or not? Let's be honest. Yes, I think it does. That's too little, that's too mediocre. And to prove, I know most of you didn't raise your hands, but it is very intriguing to you, I know that. As a matter of fact, when you get back to your offices, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and your boss asks you, what did you learn? What are you doing here? And you tell him, or you tell her, well, I'm eliminating 2 keystrokes. I went there and I saw some examples and this is wasteful. I think you're not gonna expose yourselves, right? And if you do, please do not tell them it was Sammy who taught you that, because I know it doesn't fly well. Of course, this here is mediocre, but they are showing, hey, this is what everybody should be doing. That's what we are all about. We are about eliminating waste, and this is so important for our survival. Still, we look at that as, oh, well, who cares about that? That's too little. Where is the home run? And in the search for the home run, we just passed by so many of those opportunities that today, the largest auto company today is still enforcing that. So when we talk about waste, nobody wants to eliminate it unless there is a need. And there was a need in that little island that is almost 30 times smaller than the US. There was a need. You can't survive with that. But we don't have that need. You know, people always say, well, the US is so prosperous. You know, we don't need to do, you know, the name of the game has changed, as you probably know, with the technologies, with the internet, with all sorts of new facilities that can bring products from other places. We are not competing just within our backyard anymore. You probably have more things that are made outside than what we have here. There was a study in 2000 by McKinsey showing that Toyota was considered one of the top companies, not only in the management side, but also on how capable, how their processes were. That means how lean they were. The same study was showing that GM was back here and USPS was down here. But there was never a need for those companies, especially USPS. You probably heard $17 billion in deficit in this past 2 years. That means every month the USPS is open, they are losing probably almost $1 billion. Where is the need? Who needs to create the need? At GM, they didn't see a need until it was too late. You know, in the same year, 2000, they were still bragging about record profits. All magazines and newspapers were talking about, while General Motors is hitting record highs, record profits in history. GM, the largest automaker in the world then in 2000, the largest one. Not too far from there was somebody, his name was Tom Peters. While General Motors was bragging about their record profits, he was saying, well, if things seem under control, you're just not going fast enough. And look at what happened only 7 years later. In 2007, GM sets company record for worst loss in quarter. How can the biggest company in the world go from record profits to record losses in just 7 years? Is that possible? What do you think? I think it is. History proved it. And they filed for new and new record losses quarter after quarter until they started talking about bankruptcy. And they filed for bankruptcy, not too far in 2009 already. From the same USA Today here, it was showing that Ford shares Toyota's vision, and the article goes on and on talking about all the other auto companies are following already Toyota. Not only that, all manufacturing companies, and not only that, service, healthcare, finance, insurance companies, military, because they found out, well, it's not how to make cars better, but how to see waste and eliminate them from everything we do. And when we talk about we need to see waste, and if there is no need, then leadership has the role of creating that need. People will not start going this extra mile if they don't see the need, if they see that we are good enough. There was a study mission that went to Japan, and they found out this. In Toyota, the employees themselves were contributing with one Kaizen every single day. While in Japan, the average was a lot lower. It was just one Kaizen per week, per employee. So when they came back to the US, it was a mission done by Toyota executives. They said, well, let's just take a look at how productive, how engaged, how our people are prepared and contributing with Kaizens. What do you think the number was? One Kaizen per month or per year? Not even close. It was one Kaizen per every 7 years per employee. Now look at the magnitude. If we are using Kaizens to eliminate waste, no wonder we cannot catch up with those people who are making one every single day. And maybe we are not just doing it because we don't know what it is, we can't see waste well, and sometimes leadership doesn't impose that, hey, waste is it's very bad to our organization. We may not be able to survive, and people just keep going as if nothing had happened. So Fortune magazine showed one interesting article. It was the world's most admired companies, and they said for the very first time in history, a non-US company is making top 10 most admired in the world. Not only top 10, it's the top 2. And the reason for that was they were still second place. General Motors was first. Toyota was not selling more than GM. However, it was retaining more money. It was making more profit than GM. And actually, than Ford and Chrysler, Nissan, Honda, Mitsubishi, Volkswagen. It was making more profit than the world's largest 12 combined. How can you do that if you're using exactly the same type of material? It's not that they were using cheaper material. If you're using the same technology, actually the technology suppliers to them was the same supplier to Ford, to GM. If they were using the same type of people, many people came from General Motors to work for Toyota, and vice versa. Workforce is very mobile. How come if they are using exactly the same components, the same input, they can have so much more left in their pockets? How much more margins? So a lot of people start studying the Toyota production system, and well, something is, the proof is in the pudding, and something is about their method that is different. Fast Company 2004 was showing that Toyota production system was helping the Japanese government and economy. Some other magazines and Business 2.0 was showing that post offices were using that. They saw the need way before it hit. We still haven't seen the needs here, $17 billion for the last 24 months. And our USPS, there was an article just recently. If it was a real company, it had been filed for bankruptcy already. Nobody lets a company lose $17 billion. Airports are using that, hospitals, government offices. The government of a country called East Timor in Indonesia, they asked us for some help. I went there myself, and I saw that the only thing they wanted was to reduce poverty in that country. So let's eliminate waste so we can become competitive and start exporting to some other countries. The same type of work we did in Kenya and some other poor countries. And we see the only thing they want to learn is how to eliminate waste for their survival. Now, why do we need to do that here? Because we are so rich. A lot of people can come to a place like this and say, wow, this is abundance at its highest levels. Well, we don't see the need yet. Therefore, leaders, that's your role now. And if you don't see the needs, who is going to see it? Maybe your kids later? Maybe your grandchildren later? They're going to have to suffer if we do not take steps in advance. And this here just shows another article showing that the Japanese postal services was losing a lot of money every year, and they brought somebody from Toyota, and they started making money from the first year on. Well, maybe they saw the need when they were still small and losing 25 million. It's not that much compared against 17 billion. So when we talk about leadership may create the need, there's another thing that leadership needs to do, because if you can only create the need if you know what to do. And you create the need and you don't know what to do, how can you ask other people and demand other people on what they have to do? So it requires a little bit of knowledge. It's like the people doing and hitting that nail, using that brick, and you say, hey, guys, wait a minute, there is something better for you to use. Instead of hitting that nail, there is a tool that's called a hammer that's designed specifically for that. And you're trying to reduce waste and variation and eliminate your problems, get to the root cause, improve your flow, improve your value stream. Oh, there's a great foundation for that. It's called lean. So, boss, what is lean? Oh, I don't know, but I know that there is something. That's not really a leadership attitude, right? And if you start looking at literature and what else there's out there, you'll find plenty of books about Lean. Plenty of information and classes. But maybe one thing that's more important than learning about tools is learning about the purpose of each one of them. And many times we miss exactly that point. For example, 5S. What is the purpose? I believe that many of you already heard about 5S because that's one of the starting points for Lean in many companies. We usually, when Honsha.ORG goes to an institution, the first thing that we do is an assessment of what you need to do. In many cases, we find out that's the starting point for you. You don't have the foundation, the stability that's necessary. Well, 5S just says it is a methodology for you to visualize waste easier, and that's it. And we see books about, housekeeping. 5S is about housekeeping, and 5S is also about bringing people together. I was just reading this article. 5S is the best methodology to bring people together, work together, get to know each other. And, there are there's one very good thing that can do that bringing people together task better than 5S. It's called beer. Every time I bring a pack of beer, a lot of new friends. Everybody wants to work in that area. There are other places. That means if we do not know the purpose, we might be replacing that 5S with some other things, thinking that that was the right thing. Now, there was a study just recently showing that it takes us about 30 minutes per day just looking for things. 30 minutes a day. Imagine, I was asking how many people we have in some agencies. Well, 2,000 people in some agencies. 2,000 people at 30 minutes a day per person. That means 1,000 hours. Of course, nobody works 1,000 hours, but divide that by 8. You will know exactly how many people you would need in a department just looking for things. Isn't that insane? And then 1,000 people department. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think it is possible to carry one department exclusively, just looking for things, so nobody else needs to be looking for things? So there's a dial 1-800 look for things. Okay, yeah, look for my keys. And they bring you the key. And that department has to be pretty big, no? Now, I don't know much about other agencies. I've been to a few here in Washington, and I don't know if you're too different from the companies we work with. But most companies fall into that statistics. That means that maybe you have a department of 500 people just looking for things. And if I ask you, is it possible to survive? Of course it is, because you are surviving. The problem is when there is some budget cuts, maybe there is competition. Of course, government agencies are a little bit different. But we just forget about that because 30 minutes is just 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute before lunch, and those add up to 30 minutes. But when you see a picture like this from Toyota, for example, it just shows, well, they taped around the corners, so it's easy for people to eliminate the waste of where should I place this here, so it's closer to the recycle bin, or the janitor can replace that a lot faster. This is in the DFW airport showing how they eliminated waste. This is a 5S example, making things visual so planes don't have to re-taxi. And there's a very short connection to the bridge. So change over time. The time that the plane stays in ground is very, very short. Eliminating waste. So having that type of the markation on the floor or where people know the taping on the floor is not the 5S, but it's the elimination of the waste, that is. And we see a lot of people just taping the floor, thinking, oh, I did my 5S, and you do that only for moving things. You don't do that for things such as, this is in San Diego, by the way. I thought, well, I have to take this picture because it is interesting. You see a lot of things that we do, but we don't know the purpose, and we call it 5S. Or Kanban. Kanban, many people use it. Kanban is nothing more than an artificial method to connect processes. This is a Toyota manager just showing that, and he asked me once, he said, Sammy, all these people that come to visit us, why are they so interested in Kanbans? Well, because that's what the books teach, step by step, how to do it. And his question was, do they know that this here is very bad and we are ashamed of this? Well, they think this is the best thing. And he goes, well, this is the worst thing. And we are relentlessly working to eliminate Kanbans, while many companies are relentlessly working to implement Kanbans in their work areas. And maybe because we don't know the purpose, and the purpose is just to connect to processes. And if we can connect the processes physically, let's do it. Let's not use something that's artificial. This here is just one example of red, yellow, and green. That's another way to use Kanban, and you can use it in manufacturing or administrative areas here where the pile is getting to certain other colors here. You already know that, oh, the next folder needs to be diverted to the other process, to the other cell. And you have controls here showing what is the rate or your cycle time. So this concept of green, yellow, red, if you don't understand and you think, well, this is just, if it's getting close to the red, it's replenishment time, let me implement Kanban wherever I need replenishment. Like one director of a big pharmaceutical company, he called me and said, I understand the concept of replenishing every time he gets to the red. And to take a look at this, he opens his drawer inside his big office. And he says, I never run out of cigarettes anymore. If it gets to red, I already know I need to reorder. Well, but what's the purpose, huh? And I asked him if I could take a picture. He said, sure, but never tell people who I am. But it's a pharmaceutical company. Now, the interesting thing here is that he said, Sammy, with all honesty, I did this as a humorous way to show everybody in my company that even I do it. It's simple, and that's how it works. But I know this here is just an icebreaker for people who are reluctant in implementing Lean. I just tell them, I do it, why don't you? So that's a leader. Oh, our PDCA, what is the purpose of PDCA, or plan, do, check, act? Well, that's a methodology to eliminate problems through its root causes. And it looks like this. This here is the one A3 that's blown up, and you can see the amount of data they collect and how visual they do things. But to get to this point here, and we are talking about sometimes machine operators, people with the minimum education, that they can read and write, sometimes only their names. But they can solve problems better than many other high executives. Many more people with great education. But those are floor people. They can solve problems. But everything starts with an A3 like this here. A3 is just the size of the paper, 11 by 17. And every time they start, the sensei, or the instructor, the person who is coaching that person, asks many questions. This here, the yellow bubbles, people call it yellow bubbles, are questions. Never, no, this here is not right. No, it's, what do you want to prove? by doing this? What does this chart mean? And sends it back to the person. The person changes it quite a bit. There are a bunch of new questions, and changes, and more questions, until it gets approved to second step. And there's plenty of questions there. Some questions, they go back to first step. Some others, they give approval to go to the next step. And you can see the progress, right? It's almost done until it gets to the final point, and still a few bubbles there. And they can say, well, we saved 28,000 pounds here in this one 3-month event. Or in this other one, we saved 5,000 euros. And that's going to be saved every single year. And when we have plenty of those going, then problems, they don't become that threat anymore. They even become fun. What is the next problem we are going to solve? Do you have any problems? Well, I have plenty of them. Let's find which ones we will solve first. But in many companies and organizations, what we see is some people are still afraid of problems. They are actually afraid of the word problem. They actually change the word problem. They call it opportunities. Oh, you know, we have opportunities, a bunch of them. You know, opportunities is actually, when you hear the word opportunity, that reminds me of those time-sharing salespeople. You know, oh, I have some opportunities here. Come here. The opportunities, as Daryl Wilburn from Honsha, he used to say, well, you can choose to take it or not. That's opportunities. Problems, you don't have the choice. You just go there, face it, eliminate it. So don't disguise problems into opportunities. Once we are equipped with the right methodology, we will be able to solve them without having that fear. Well, Kaizen Taiyan, what is that? This is another one of those Japanese words that never found a good English translation. People say, well, Kaizen is continuous improvement. Well, it's really not only that. What is Taiyan, for example? Well, the best translation for that is it's a proposal. Well, proposal here in the US, for example, when you propose to somebody, when I propose to my wife, that means, oh, it's a few months from now, we're going to get married. It's something that will happen in the future. Taiyan is proposal, but it's something that already is done already. That's my Kaizen proposal that I already did. What do you think? See, there is no word in English, right, for that. So it is difficult for us to try to translate even Kaizen into continuous improvement. It's not that. But that's the closest we can get to. So continuous improvement proposal. Well, actually, when we talk about purpose, what is the purpose of Kaizen, which we hear many, many times when we talk about lean? Well, there are only 3: reduce waste, improve quality, or improve safety. Well, how about, we see people changing the carpet on the floor here. That's great. That's great Kaizen. No, it's not. Are you helping eliminate waste? Is it helping the quality or safety? No. So it's not a Kaizen. That doesn't mean you have to stop it. You have to keep changing it. That's really nice. It's necessary. And I'll call it an improvement because it is. But I'll never call it Kaizen because it's not. What is Kaizen then? It has to reduce some waste, for example? Yes. That means we need to learn what waste is. So if anything that reduces waste is a Kaizen, no. There's some other screens here in this funnel. Meeting the purpose is only one of them. The second one is, does it address the root cause? And what is the root cause of, for example, this here is just one example. What you see is a little boy here, ripped his pants, goes to his mom, And she says, just throw them out. I'll buy you a new pair. Well, the grandma says, you know what? Don't throw them out. That's waste. It's $10 a pair. Let me just patch them for you. That's going to cost me just $1. And that is what we call fixing. Until somebody has this great idea and says, you know what, we can do double stitches, stronger threads, using a sewing machine. And a lot of people call this a Kaizen. But this here is still just an improvement. Kaizen is only when you go to the root cause and you eliminate it. So not only do you need to eliminate the waste, but you have to do it at its root cause. And if I just stop here and ask you, where do you think you are, or maybe not even you, people who didn't have the opportunity to come to an event like this, didn't have the opportunity to attend workshops, to read books, maybe people who, they have to be in the office, in the agencies there. What do you think their level is here? I'm pretty sure it's not level 1, where everything you do, you just throw them out and let's just be wasteful. Just from the speech from your governor today, I can tell you, you don't have this mentality. It's very obvious to me. But I'm also afraid you're not here either. But still, I want to ask you, how many of you, and maybe not you, because as I said, you have higher education in Lean than the other people who are not here, but people who stayed behind in the agencies, couldn't come here. How many of you think that your agency or your teams or your departments or your companies are in step number 4? Stage 4, they always look for the root cause and they are always trying to find it and eliminate it. Good. So that leaves just 3 and 2. Now, how many of you think that your people are in stage 3? They are always trying to improve. Let me see a show of hands. Maybe a third, no, not even that. Or some people are afraid of raising their hands. Let me ask you, how many of you think that you are on 2? You are just fixing things. Oh, yeah, the great majority. Very good. This here becomes a self-reflection for you, I think. If you're not here yet, or maybe not even here yet, as a leader, what are you going to do about it? Because after this seminar, maybe tomorrow or maybe Thursday, you're going back, right? What are you going to do about it? Understanding where you are and where you should be. Unless you say, no, I don't think we would like to be here. Then that's a different story. We can talk after the session. But if you agree that, yeah, we want our people to get here, so what is your step? And the third and last screen here is your idea standardized? You already eliminated the waste. You already found the root cause of it. So what did you do to standardize, meaning it will not roll back with time? Standardization is something like this. A little wedge that you put just behind the rock, which is your improvement. So that improvement will not roll back with time. Sometimes it's because of job rotation. You're not going to be there next year. Maybe it's changing government. Maybe there are several reasons. Did you do anything to standardize your accomplishments so it will remain in place? Otherwise, that rock will roll back. You're going to push it up again and always think, oh, I'm improving. That's the definition of repetitive improvement, not continuous improvement. So when we talk about Kaizen, there are only 3 steps here, which is we already talked about the purpose. And if we talk about eliminating waste, you see the 7 types, and there's one additional one here. They call it ideas not used. And this here is a very Western addition to the original from Toyota, which was 7. The root cause. and the standardization. Are we following those? So when we talk about purpose, we need to understand that first thing so we can permeate that to the other levels. So let me make you a proposal now. And this is a real proposal. It's not going to happen today, but in the future. If I gave you $1,000 every day for 1 calendar month, 31 days, of course you'd have at the end $31,000. But say I have a different option for you. And the option is, instead of giving you $1,000 every day for 1 month, I will do the same for 1 month, but I'll give you $10 the first day. But I'll double it every day for 1 month. And that's option B. How many of you would go for option B here? Let me see, a show of hands. Oh, almost half of you. So almost half of this group, you think that you'd end up with more than $31,000 at the end of the month. Am I correct? What if I lower that to $1? I still double it every day. What do you think? Some people, you've been through that, huh? Yes, it's a good number of people. Now, let me say that I have a final offer, and see if you stand. It's 10 cents. I still double it. 10 cents, 20 cents, 40 cents. Just 1 month, huh? Oh, I see almost 10 hands here. That means I need to give you the final and last offer, a penny. I still double it. I still double it. Wow, you guys are really reluctant, resilient. Well, let me do this. Instead of, I cannot lower that penny offer, much less, right? What I can do, though, is I can increase your offer. Instead of $31,000 in option B, I'll double it. Instead of $1,000 a day, how about $2,000 a day? How many of you would still stick with option B? Let me see. Oh, a few of you. So you really think you're going to end up with more than $60,000 by starting with a penny? Just 1 month? Or you didn't get my game right? Okay, let me do this. I think we cannot go any further than that. I'll give you $1 million. $1 million, okay? At the end, I'll just give you a lump sum, $1 million. Or option B, I'll start with 1 penny and still double it every day. Anybody go for? So you think it's going to be more than $1 million? All right. So are you guys from the IRS department internally? Well, let's take a look at this. So if you really start with a penny, it grows very fast. Does anybody want to change their minds now? Nobody? Nobody for option B? Okay. Well, we can keep going. How about now? Do you really think it's going to end up at more than $1 million? Now, who wants to change their minds now, for example? What do you think? Is that correct? Yes, it is Excel. Now, let me tell you, Kaizen, when we talk about Kaizen Teian, we are talking about this type of improvement. The one that starts with those 2 microseconds. And nobody wants to pay attention to it unless somebody shows them the big home run. And when I showed you the big home run, everybody wanted, yeah, I can do that. Now, how many times do you think in your lifetime you will have somebody showing you the final result, the finish line, so you can take your first step? How many times you'll be lucky enough to have somebody to show you that? Maybe never. And what I'm showing you here is doubling something every single day. That's really amazing. And now we can see, and now we can, let's take a try. But you know that if you did 1%, not 100% as we did here, I won't double it, but only 1% improvement every single day. You know how much you would improve? There is a book, we just launched this book. It's upstairs in the Honsha.ORG booth, and it talks about this. The answer is, in just 70 days, you double your performance, your improvement, even if it's 1%. We're not talking about those 100% anymore, doubling every day. Just 1%. How difficult is it for us to do that? How much time will it take from our busy days? So instead of the Kaizen in batches, oh, let's just have a Kaizen event that week. And nothing against Kaizen events or Kaizen weeks. But make sure that this year is not replacing the Kaizen Teian, the culture of everyday Kaizen by everybody, everywhere. So and when we talk about that, just an example. Before my Kaizen, this is from the same series that that I showed the lady typing the extra digits. So before my Kaizen, I had to fill the bucket and then mix the contents with the water and some of the powder that was already here, some paint. And after I'd done that, I would take it to some other step. But after my Kaizen, it says here, I found a way to connect a pipe. And at the end of the pipe, I punched some holes. And when I'm filling the bucket, it's already mixing the contents at the same time. And that's my Kaizen in my work area. I've done that. It's my proposal of what I already did, right? It took me maybe 5 minutes to do that. And it will stay there. So it was a waste that I eliminated. Oh, but that's just a minute. You know, it just takes you a minute every time you do this. It's 1 minute per cycle time that you are saving. That's nothing. It is nothing, actually. It's nothing, it won't go to your bottom line. Please, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that this 1 minute is going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. It will not make it to your bottom line. The only thing, you will still have the same payroll. That guy is going to be 1 extra minute idle. Oh, that's how Lean works. Kaizen works like this. So you eliminate minutes and people get more idle. Well, in the beginning, yes, they do. But a good leader that understands the technique will tell that person, so what are you going to do in this 1 minute that you have added to your cycle time? What can you do? And you will coach those people to think, well, the next step is to really take the bucket and see if it's the right weight. And before I had to do this, just bring it to the weight scale, find out if it's the right. If it's not, I have to either remove some water from that, or I have to get back to that faucet and put more water in. Well, so what's your Kaizen? After my Kaizen, I found a way to just put some lines here that shows exactly where I have to stop filling the bucket. How long does it take? Well, it took me just a couple of minutes. Well, where did you find those couple of minutes? You know where I found it? I found it right here. This year, I don't have to do it anymore. Therefore, I use this time to do more Kaizens. And instead of that 1 extra minute, now I have 2 extra minutes because I don't have to do this either. And that's how 1 became 2, and 2 became 4, and 4 became 10 million. But we don't want to do that. And why is that? Well, one a very interesting one, too, is this here. It's a Kaizen about safety, and it says, before my Kaizen, people would pass by this pillar and would hit their heads against the cover of the key box. After my Kaizen, I found a way to just tilt the box a little bit and put it back into the pillar, and gravity would close that lid. Gravity. So there is no risk of this happening anymore. Now, here's a good question for you. How many of you see this here as something, that's great, something I can do? It is a Kaizen. Just think about that. Because I'm going to start asking a few questions that will require deep thought. And this is, say that you're very busy, you have a workload that is tremendous. You have reports to turn in, you have some other meetings, you have people you have to meet, and many other things you have to do throughout your day. How many of you, honestly speaking, would take some time out, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and devote, this time is for me to do Kaizens. I'll do that today. And I'm talking about very busy, huh? Don't think it's mildly busy. So some people, a few, maybe 3, 4, okay, 5. That's great. I'm glad to see that. Now, say that this lady, she is passing by and she hits her head and she's dizzy now and she's bleeding, she's on the floor, and you're passing by, you're with your folders going to that meeting, and you still have so many other things going, and you see that person in need. How many of you would stop and help her? Let me see. Oh, almost all of you. So government people are really nice people. I knew you'd do that, of course. But it's getting more difficult, the question now. The other question is, now say that you're not only very busy, but the lady is from a different agency. Would you still help her? I knew it. So everybody would help. And maybe this lady, she will need some extra care. Maybe she needs to be taken to the hospital. How long does it take? This here would take you 10 minutes. This here, helping the lady, maybe an hour. An intriguing question is, so you don't have 10 minutes here, but you have 1 hour to help her. And I know you would. That tells me something about you. It tells me you do have time. You have an hour. What you don't have is priority. 10 minutes. But that's not your priority. Your priority is to maybe help her because it already happened. Now, how many people you know who have leadership roles that are leading from behind? They are waiting for things to happen. Now I'll go and fix it. I'll go and help. I'll do something about it. Because when we talk about lean leadership, we are talking about leading here, eliminating waste before we run out of budget, before we go into bankruptcy, not after. And that's where we have to do that self-reflection. Find out, maybe I think we need to learn more about lean and all the techniques so I can lead my people. They can get better. Our agency can get better. Our state, and hopefully the entire federal government, the entire country. That's how important it is. So when we talk about Kaizen, this here is actually the word Kaizen written in kanji. So the first part here means kai, or change, or continuous. The second part here means improvement, or better. So you see that the Japanese is a little bit different. They use some of the Chinese characters. They call it kanji. And there is no good translation to date on that. Because the best one I've ever seen is this one when you eliminate each one of the components. And this first part here means self. The second part here on the right-hand side, that means whipping. You know what whipping is? You know when some cultures, they have that culture of self-whipping. Okay. What do you call it? Flagellation. This second part here, if you separate this part here, it means sheep. You know sheep? The animal? This second part here means altar. You remember in the ancient civilizations, they would offer sheep and goats in an altar. Now, combine all that together. The continuous improvement, change for the better, altars, self-whipping, sheep. Is there any word that comes to mind? You know, the word that comes to mind for me is sacrifice. Sacrifice, maybe it is something else we need to do. It's not just, well, let's just continuously improve. No, it will require something more than ourselves. In exchange for that, we will have something. Maybe employment security. Maybe better times for our state, in our companies. Maybe more stability, even within our families, because we can every day count on the financial stability that our jobs bring, our companies bring. So this here is extremely important for leadership to know. If we really want to embrace lean, we need to take that step. And if, during the self-reflection I asked you to do, if you believe that, well, I'm not willing, I'm not ready to take that step, to do a Kaizen, to lead lean into my organization, you have to tell somebody. Because maybe you are in the wrong role. And that can be very damaging, not to you, not to your department, but to the entire state, if not the country. So guys, that's all I had to share with you today. I know many of you, it's still 5 to 12. Some of you might have questions, but I'll be here after this year. I will just dismiss everybody. We can still talk. But hopefully you'll stop by the booth, ask questions, talk to Daryl, or we have Moni Mitchell here too. It will be a pleasure to get to know you personally. Thank you very much.